Hi there, I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent training. Welcome to our live Friday broadcast where we host a question and answer class. You can ask your questions about American English pronunciation, American accent training, intonation, anything that's going to help you reach your goals for improving your personal and professional communication in American English. Thank you for those of you who've been commenting and asking questions and participating in our community page on Speech Modification Seattle here on YouTube. I've been posting daily with quizzes and sneak previews and resources for you that you can find both here on YouTube as well as on speechmodification.com, my website. And welcome to those of you who are new, and especially those of you joining from our Facebook groups. We've been showing some of the live videos on Facebook as well as on YouTube, but these are the classes where you can participate by asking your questions in the chat. So feel free to do that at any time. Today, I'd like to talk about the next steps for our SMART Goals Challenge. So we've been looking at how to set goals that will help you actually make changes you're hoping to make. And this applies to other areas, but we're focusing in, of course, on improving your American accent and how to use it for that. And I'm also going to be going over some of the requests I've gotten this week for pronunciation, your requests that are coming in live. And if there's time, we'll also take a look at some of the American English vowel sounds and spelling, some of the things we've been talking about in our groups this week. I'd like to highlight errors that are common for people across different languages, things that people are struggling with, the things I hear questions about, and some of the information that you may or may not already know that about pronunciation. So we'll get to all of that in just a moment. Nice to see everyone so far. So, excuse me. So we've been working on what I call the SMART Goals Challenge. And a SMART goal is something that is specific. That's our S. And it's meaningful. It's achievable. You need to have, or it's helpful to use rewards and reminders. And lastly, we're going to talk about the T of the SMART goal, which stands for tell. So the element of tell means that if I tell someone about my goal, I'm more likely to feel accountable and to actually work on that goal and keep at it, keep going with it. And I'll receive potentially encouragement from the people that I'm telling, and that will be rewarding as well. So for just a brief review, for many of us, we talked about having 30 minutes of practice for our specific goal. And we maybe even narrowed that down further to working on a particular word, a particular pattern, a particular sound, or attending class. That's 30 minutes right there that you can use for practicing. Having something that is meaningful means that I want to have, of course, my bigger goal. So perhaps your bigger goal is to be better understood, or your bigger goal is people don't ask you where you're from because they can't detect your accent. Your bigger goal is to feel confident when you're speaking English. All of those goals are meaningful for you because if you were able to achieve them, you would feel better. You would know when you had achieved it. You would feel like this is helping you progress the way you want to progress. And we also want those goals to be achievable. So even though I do have the big goal of improve my English, maybe, be better understood, that's meaningful and great. I also want to have some steps along the way that I can achieve and say, yes, I achieved that. I'm feeling good. I know I'm making progress to my big goal with my small achievable steps. So we also talked about building in some things that are rewarding for you besides just making progress, having some incentives for those steps along the way, and making sure you're using reminders because it's very easy to set the goals, to think about what I want, and it's very difficult sometimes to do these small things because I don't remember. My busy day happens, it goes by, I don't do it. I've been doing the SMART Goals Challenge along with you, and personally, I've been working on improving my singing That's my big goal. And I've set some small goals along the way, made them measurable and achievable. And what I'll tell you is that so far it's been going really well. So I've been marking and tracking what I've been doing for practice. So to improve my singing, I decided if I practiced 30 minutes a week and really focused and kept track of that and saw whether or not I was achieving that, I would definitely make some progress on my singing. I've noticed it's been a little bit hard to keep track. I've missed sometimes, but what has happened for me is that because I was really specific and focused, I made it something meaningful, something I was able to achieve. I haven't needed to keep track quite as much. I've built some new habits. So I'm practicing regularly and building those into my routine. And so that's been very successful for me. Being able to talk to you about it has helped me. So the telling piece is very good. I've also told some people in my family some of my goals, what I'm working on towards being a better singer. And that's, again, been very helpful. So I hope that you have that opportunity as well. And I'm going to pause here. We'll stop talking about the SMART goals, and I'm going to take questions about that and any other topics. So I see we have some questions. Yes, we have a reminder. So I will be taking and talking about requests for pronunciation. And so one of the requests I received this week was for the word authority. And so I want to talk about how to pronounce that word authority. And if you have a word you'd like me to help you with, you can put that in the comments as well. So the word authority has 4 syllables. And the spelling doesn't really match the sounds very well in this word. So the first thing to know is that my stress is going to be on the second syllable. These other syllables will be short. So authority, I want to make sure I'm lengthening on the Thor. For many people, a TH and an R in the same word can be challenging. Also, an OR sound can be challenging. So this is a word that might be helpful to build just from the center and work our way out. So we might want to start with just saying and then or, so having that rounded O and gliding into the So or, then tongue between teeth, Thor. And then our first syllable is our vowel schwa, sounds like a. So a Thor. And then we have a vowel I, flap T, sounds like a light D, and our E vowel. So authority. Quick, authority. Once you can say that with some authority, you can begin to build it into phrases and words. Who has the authority here? We don't have authority over that. Finding ways that you would actually use that word and begin practicing it at more and more advanced levels. If it's challenging to sequence those sounds and to say them correctly, just go slowly and build your way up. And you may find that breaking it down from the more difficult parts and then adding in the potentially easier parts will help you build the rhythm and the correct pronunciation. Hi, everybody. We have another question about the pronunciation of the word politics. Can you tell me why the last T is not pronounced like a flap T? It's between vowels and it doesn't have stress. So politics, you're right. When a T is between 2 vowels, oftentimes if it's not at the beginning of a stressed syllable, it will be a flap. In the case of politics, I think politics, it is at the beginning of the syllable. So even though the syllable ticks isn't stressed, politics, the stress is here, and I have short, and it's the start of that syllable. So it's kind of strange how these T's work in the middle of words. And honestly, I've spent a lot of time trying to come up with regular rules that we can use and understand to know what kind of T to use. In this case, it doesn't really follow those regular rules very well. But I think if I had to do a sub rule, what I would say is that because it's far away from the stressed syllable, and it starts that syllable, politics. You can hear it sounds strange if I say politics, politics. I'm definitely using an aspirated true T there. So I'm sorry that I don't have a very good explanation for why that is, but you'll just find that once you get used to listening for what the T does and practicing, you'll just have to sort that out in your mind and say, okay, this one does this for whatever reason versus others that don't. And hopefully once you've begun practicing these types of words, you can hear the ones that don't sound American if you use the wrong type of T. I do have a lesson about T in the middle of words and a lesson about linking the T. Here's the linking T lesson, and you can search on speechmodification.com on my website to find more help for any topic that you're looking for. But specifically for this topic, what you're going to want to do is look at the free practice and go to the online practice free trial and then use the search tools here. So if I look at, I'm just going to type in American T, and then what's going to pop up is all of the lessons related to that topic. And I can page through and see what makes sense for me, what's going to answer my question. So I'm seeing a number of different ones, common errors, T's and D's. Here's a lesson about how Americans say the T sound in the beginning in words like water and little, beginning, middle, and ends of words. So you can use those resources. I have a pretty large word list of which ones do which. So that's going to really help you get started. And then there may be some additional words here and there that you have to sort out and decide, is it going to have, which kind of T it's going to have based on how people say it. You're very welcome. Sorry, I kind of went on a long time on that one. We have a question, which is the correct pronunciation of fiancé. And then is your first word finance versus fiance? I don't know this word, fiance. So fiancé, is that two E's, one E, has stress on the last syllable. So in French, they put the stress mark if it's a stress syllable. So fiancé, I'm going to lengthen on that last syllable. I have the vowel E, the vowel A, and then the S sound, and an A, fiancé, fiancé. And that is one word where we are somewhat true to the French pronunciation. There are other words that come from French that Americans pronounce. They Americanize the pronunciation, and they don't really hold those stress patterns in the vowel sounds from French. Okay, great. Continue to ask your questions as you like. I want to talk a little bit about a topic of sounds, spelling, and letters. So this week we've been looking at, on the community page and on Facebook, some of the words that are misleading based on how they're spelled. So particularly vowel sounds can be misleading for us. And if you're on the YouTube channel, you can find these posts here on the community page, and you'll see that I have links to resources. So this is a link to a vowel guide that you can download from my website, which looks like this. And this is really going to help you because we have all of the vowels of English here. We have symbols for the sounds of the vowels. So there's the E, the I, the the A, etc. And today I want to look at the O vowel and also how sometimes it says the sound. You can see those symbols and how the vowel sound is typically spelled, what I use for anchor words, and then commonly the most common words with a particular vowel sound. It has all of the vowels, and it also has some contrast that might be helpful for you. So typical error patterns, it has two words with the correct and the incorrect vowel sound or minimal pairs. At any rate, we'll talk a little bit about how to use that as a resource. But what I wanted to show you was that you can find links to those resources on the community page if you're already a YouTube subscriber, or even if you're not, just go over to my page and you'll find it. And you'll see we've been having a number of questions about vowel sounds and spelling and some visual information to help you out. We have a question. I'll pause and take your question. Is it common to confuse these two consonants, y and j? For example, in the word yellow, Spanish speakers don't have the consonant j, but sometimes we say incorrectly like jello. Yes, so for whatever reason, Spanish speakers will interchange the J letter and the Y letter. So they might say yellow, they might say this sound instead of this sound. So yellow should have the y sound. In English, we spell that with letter Y. The sound symbol is kind of confusing here because if I look at that symbol, I do think of j because we spell this one with letter J, like job. So what Spanish speakers do is they interchange these two letters. So they might say job, more like yob. They might say yellow, more like jello. So this is another place where minimal pairs will help you out. And also just really drilling down on y is always going to say the y glide in English. So trying common words, yellow, you, yes, and that the j letter is always going to say the j sound. Again, common words, job, just, juice, etc. I do have a number of practice exercises and some videos for this, specifically for Spanish speakers. That's typically mostly just an error that Spanish speakers have, although the j sound and especially the j sound is a challenging one for other language backgrounds as well. So you can search again on YouTube and on my channel page. And what I would say for if you're looking for that pattern, you might want to go here in the categories and find your language. And in this case, just click on Spanish, and then you'll see a lot of resources related to Spanish. So here's the very first one, pronouncing the j sound, and it talks exactly about this topic. So what your common errors for that sound might be, and what words are for that, the letters, the spelling, etc. You'll also find a start page showing kind of the top 5 errors for your language and links to other resources for Spanish speakers. So I hope you can check that out. I hope you find that helpful. So we have a question about linking TH and S like North Star. North Star. Okay, so as you know, the TH sound, north, I need my tongue between my teeth and the air flowing to make that sound correctly. If I'm linking into the next word star, North Star, I basically am just pulling my tongue back from the into this. I have to do this as well if I'm saying something like fifths, widths. It is a little bit challenging to do it quickly, but basically it's continuing that air with no voicing. The moves right into the s. And all I do to link the two is pull my tongue back into the S position from the TH position. So North Star, fifths, widths. It's a little harder in these because I have an additional consonant before my TH sound. We have a question about reading a great big number. So what you're looking at is he has 3 digits, comma, another 3 digits, another 3 digits, another 3 digits. So this is the ones place. This is the tens. This is the, well, ones, sorry. This is the ones, tens, and hundreds. This is the thousands, 10,000s, and 100,000s. So 100,000. This is the million, 10 million, 100 million. This is the billion, 10 billion, 100 billion. So I'm going to start with the top number. So if my number started here, I would start with X 100,000, etc. Because it's 100 billion, I'm going to start in your number I will put in your number. His number is 234 billion, 2,022,111. So depending on where you have digits, you're using those place markers to begin what you're saying. So if it's a number like 234, I can say that all before I say billion, 234 billion. There are some different alternatives to how to pronounce numbers, and I do have some videos about pronouncing numbers, but that was your particular question with long digits is helpful to learn the rules of what each place for the digits is named, and then where you begin and how you fill in those numbers. You're very welcome. Okay, another question for a difficult word for many people, which is the word worlds. I do have a video which I recently made about this word worlds. So if you go to the channel page or to my website, so when I'm on the speech modification channel, if I'm on it on my desktop, there will be a search box there, and I can type in worlds. I can also look at recent uploads because I know I recently uploaded this one. And you'll see the video for the word world. Easier said than done. And in that video, I break it down, but I'll do it again for you now. One of the challenges with this word is that it's spelled with the letters OR, but it really has the ER sound. So if you can say were, then you can say world, because it's just like were plus an L plus a D. So keep in mind that even though I see an OR, same for the word work, I really could spell that with an ER, work. It just has the one sound and no OR sound. To build the word worlds, I would start with the and then I would add in the W, were. And then to do my dark L that's in this word, I use a little bit of an sound. Whirl, whirl. The O has the back of my tongue down and the front of the tongue lifting for the L. I put my D on, world. And then lastly, the S in this word says a Z, worlds, Z. So I end on that voice sound, Z. It is quite challenging to sequence all of these sounds, so build it up slowly. Try were, whirl, world, worlds. Take your time and add one sound at a time. If you can identify which part of that is most difficult for you and work on other words that have those same sounds. For example, if it's the just work on the earn, early. You can work on words like girl. They have the same pattern. Sounds like girl. If it's the dark L that's difficult for you, work on other words with the dark L, etc. And eventually you'll be able to build that sequence of sounds into that particular word. You're very welcome. Thank you for the great questions. Many people have these same questions as you, and as you can see, they've been asked before, so I do have videos for many of them, but I never mind explaining because it's helpful, I think, to hear someone walk you through the steps you need to pronounce a difficult word like that. Susan has a question. How to pronounce the ends of words ending with the letters M-E-N-T, like the word moment. Could I use the I instead of the schwa? Okay, so what she's asking about is this vowel here. So she knows that the mo is the stressed syllable and the ment is very short. And I would say that people almost leave the vowel out entirely. It's so short, moment, moment. And so a dictionary might say it's a schwa, like a moment, or you might see a dictionary say it like the reduced vowel, moment, moment. I think either way that helps you make the vowel very reduced and very short is fine. I think these two are somewhat interchangeable when it comes to unstressed syllables. The most important thing is that there's not very much happening between my and my n, moment. The least sound I can make there, the more American I'm going to sound pronouncing that word. I do have some resources for these reduced vowel sounds. Looking at my videos about how to pronounce longer words and how to pronounce vowel schwa should help you with that. But again, yes, I and schwa and vowel I are somewhat interchangeable in many words like moment. Great. So we have another question about intonation. When we read complete topic and make it like native. If you're working on intonation as you're reading aloud, that's slightly different than intonation when I'm talking, when I'm in a conversation. The rules for intonation are different based on the speaking task. So I would say sometimes for many people, reading aloud is actually more challenging than doing conversational practice for intonation because I have to do so many things at once. I have to read ahead for what words are coming. I have to think about the phrases in the sentence. I would probably suggest practicing everyday sentences and phrases for intonation first. And the other thing is that if I'm just giving a lecture, just talking, my intonation patterns are going to be a little bit different than if I'm interacting with someone and having a conversation. When I'm having a conversation, there are rules for the turn taking, for asking questions versus giving answers, making statements. And I'm signaling with my intonation whether or not I'm going to be continuing or if my turn is finished. I just tried to model that. So continuing, my pitch is not going down. And when I'm all done, my pitch goes down. So I can mimic this somewhat when I'm reading, and you can listen to an audiobook, for example, and hear how someone uses the intonation patterns to tell the story. But that may be different than how you use it when you're actually talking. So breaking down the different tasks and practicing where you need to use your English the most is going to be the most helpful. I definitely think that you can develop many of these skills using my intonation playlist on YouTube. You can find that on the channel page, and I'll put the link for that. I'm finding it here on my computer for you. I'll put the link for the intonation playlist for you in the chat now because that's going to kind of walk you through the most basic steps for intonation as well as answering your question for more sophisticated work on intonation. So there's that playlist. Check that out and keep coming back to class. We do cover intonation frequently in this class as well, because many people have questions about it and need special help and focus on intonation. Another question for pronouncing breath versus breadth. Okay, so breath has just the TH versus breadth has the D and TH. These are both challenging. You may hear Americans making errors on something like breadth. We don't really do much of a D sound for breadth. We do kind of stop the air. If I just say breath, I'm going right from the vowel into the TH, and that word just flows. Breath versus breadth. I'm not saying bread. That's too challenging. I'm just stopping the air for breath, for the D, breath, and then the air restarts again for the TH. So that's how you're going to be able to distinguish which one is being said. I took a breath, and we measured the breadth of the room. Good question. And yes, challenging to hear and practice, but the difference is one continuing and one stopping and then recontinuing. Okay, more questions. A question for the words dawn, boss, and law. Okay, there's a theme here for your questions. You're probably struggling with this vowel sound that sounds like aw. And so what you want for those words is that your jaw, another one of those words, is open about midway. Your lips are somewhat rounded, and you want to try to avoid having the open ah sound or thinking about the letters A or O. If you think about it more as this ah, I call that the caught law vowel. And the main errors people have with it are just not having enough rounding or confusing it with the open ah vowel. So if I said Don, the name, Don, then that is my unrounded ah vowel, and my rounded ah vowel is dawn. There is no bas or la. Those would be open. So just maintaining that ah sound and then folding it into your words will help you. Another question. The suffix in the word ative, for example, your questions are for words informative, communicative. In those words, it's a schwa and a vowel ative. In that case, I would say it's always, I would guess, always as a suffix. It's going to have two unstressed vowels because communicative, informative, the stressed part of the word is earlier. Now, in the word native, the A is going to say a clear vowel because that's the stressed syllable, and we're still going to have the tiv part. But on a longer word, when these are two unstressed syllables at the end, two unstressed vowels, a tiv. Susan wants to know how I pronounce the word with. Do I say with or with? I personally say with, but they're both correct. So I would say Americans are about 50-50 on this. With the voiced sound sounds just fine. For whatever reason, probably based on my background in the Midwest, I tend to say with. I hear both, and whichever one is easier for you is perfectly appropriate to say. So with a pen, I use voiceless. Another question about the with, if followed by consonant, voiced and voiceless. With you, with me, without. Okay, so in those, when I just read them, I used voiceless for with you and with me. And when I said without, I did use the voiced because I just kept my voice on in all one word, without, because the TH is, between those two vowel sounds. So I would say in that word, I use voiced. If the next word starts with a consonant, I tend to use voiceless. If I say with a friend, I still use voiceless, but you can easily link that and use a voiced with a friend. That might be easier. Whatever's easiest for you, not with a fried, with a friend. I, for whatever reason, have that pretty strong voiceless TH for most of my uses of the word with. Okay, let's see. One more question, and then we're going to need to wrap up for today. Another challenging word, the word rarely. Here, I would break it down by starting with my air. If I need to break it down even further, to start with my and then add my a vowel, air, then add my r, rare, and finally a nice little light ly, rarely, long and short, rarely. You can find some help for the word rural. I have a recent video for that. That's going to help you with a similar pattern of the two R's, the beginning R and the vocalic R. Very challenging. Anytime there's more than one R or an R and an L or an R and a TH together, you're looking at sounds that aren't necessarily natural for you because they're not in your native language. So you just really want to build from that, getting that American R sound and then building the word slowly and carefully to get that sequence of sounds. Yes, rarely is on my list of videos to make, along with early and some other R and L combinations. So, so Wendell wants to clarify that his question, the pronunciation rule for the entire word ending in ative. So if I'm doing informative or communicative, the rule is going to be that it's going to depend on what the root is. So for informative, my stress is on form, but in communicative, three there, I would say it's not always the syllable right before the ative. That's because in communicative, it's the same as in communicate. The mun is the stress syllable and it stays. I don't know if you know how to look up the syllable stress in words. I'll show you that really briefly. That's pretty useful because there may not be a rule for that particular pattern of sounds. It's going to depend on what the root is. So depending on which word you're trying to use, you can look up the syllable stress. I like using the Oxford Learner's Dictionary because it'll show me that many online dictionaries will show you the stress pattern. So if I put in informative, oh, by the way, informative, I am using a flap T there. Informative. I'll be able to listen to it and hear it, and I can also see that they mark the syllable stress with a little line before the stress syllable. So this is British English. See, it says BRE, and this is American English. And to hear it, I think it's not working on my iPad, but I can see informative that I have a clear vowel on that syllable and I have the syllable stress marked. I can research and look into it for you for other words that have ative at the end, but it's going to depend, I think, on the root and where the stress goes in that root. So it's a little bit complicated. Okay, so thank you for your questions and for participating in class today. It's great to see everyone. If you're watching this not live, you can put your questions in the comments and I will return to the video and make sure that I answer your questions as well as directing you to resources on speechmodification.com or here on my channel page that will help answer your questions. Next week, we will pick up where we left off with looking at vowel sounds and spelling, and we'll be talking about letter O and vowel schwa. Since we didn't get to that this week, we had a lot of great questions instead, which I always appreciate. I never mind taking off from the topic and going where you would like us to go in terms of getting your questions answered. Thank you so much for being a part of class today. Hope to see you again next week, and keep coming back to the community page to see what's new and get more help and resources. Thanks, everyone. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound American, you can do it. speechmodification.com. Bye, guys.